Welcome to another episode of PRGirl Talk. I'm so excited. Not that all of the ones before this wasn't awesome, but they literally keep getting better and better. I think because the topics that we're discussing are so real and important to not just the time we're living in today, but like honestly, the future, right? So we have another guest with us today, Jorgensen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I'll give the audience a little bit about you. So Annie is a 2018 graduate of the University of Georgia, right? You majored in journalism and minored in communication. And this is the fun part for me. You were Miss Georgia in 2018. We're going to talk about that because I can't wait to hear from the inside what that was really like, right? And while you were Miss Georgia, you promoted the hashtag I Got This program, helping to build self-confidence in today's youth. And currently, you're a creative coordinator at Small Girls PR. And that was, so you and Giselle work together, right? Which is exciting. So anyway, welcome to the show. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much. I was so excited when I saw that you had interviewed Giselle. She's one of my favorite human beings on planet Earth. She's such a breath of fresh air. So I'm excited to be a part of this also.
Yes, we had a lot of fun with her and we're happy. Now I'm like, okay, who else works at Small Girls? Like we need to be like all best friends. But anyway, so Fallon, hey girl, hey, how you doing?
Hi guys, happy Saturday. Annie's so excited to have you on.
Excited to meet you guys.
Is that scarf, Fallon, from your client?
It is, it's Deseda. So it's actually a portrait of Nina Simone on the inside because every scarf has a unique piece of artwork from an artist somewhere around the world. So
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah. I might have to text you about that on the side. Anyway, ladies, thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to bring up another topic that I think is really special and deserves some discussion, if you will. So the whole idea of the feminist movement, right? Where everyone would argue that every marginalized group alive right now is fighting for progress, right? And women as a whole, as a collective, we're included, right? No matter what color we are, how old we are, how young we are, as women, we understand that there's still more left to do in the fight to be seen as equal human beings to men, right? And so many levels, financially, just socially, you know, what we decide to do with our bodies. Like I was talking to my husband the other night, and I told him I was watching some clips of some of the Congress and folks like going back and forth around, you know, our healthcare rights. And one of the ladies just like leaned in, like really like how a grown woman does sometimes, and said, when has there ever been a discussion or a law about what a man can or cannot do with their body? And everyone was just like crickets, right? Because, right, never. Like there's never been a time where men have sat around thinking or talking about or coming up with laws about what they should or cannot do with their bodies. But meanwhile, there are so many laws about, you know, what we can do with our bodies, decisions that we make of when and where and how we potentially bring life into this world. So with that, I kind of said, okay, that is a very important thing that we need to kind of bring to the table and discuss today. So I wanted to get started with just asking both of you guys, how do you define feminism, right? Because even that is very different for people. So we'll start with Annie and then Fallon, jump right in. How do you guys define feminism?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. Before I answer that, I think it's what we're having this conversation today about feminism is so important. I actually read a study yesterday that came through one of my email subscriptions, and it said that women are being left behind within this quarantine time, that 70% of the promotions that will happen during this period will be given to men over women. And so I think it's a really great conversation that we're having, talking about feminism and talking about the strength of women. And so now to answer your question, I think feminism is something that is so unique to each individual and it can look different for every single person. For me, I think feminism is all about showing the strength of what it means to be a woman, showing how we can be equally as intelligent and beautiful and smart and goal oriented. And so it's just taking our potential and exemplifying it to the fullest is to me being a feminist.
Yeah. And Fallon?
Yeah, I think it's just like feeling the confidence without the awareness to be like super proud of who you are as a female and what that means to you in every which way. And to Annie's point, you know, it's so different to each person.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's for me it's a combination, right? It's, you know, the idea that we as women get to wake up every day and do, feel, behave, think, act however we want, and be treated equal to, you know, men, um, and not be made to feel like what we bring to the table, because it is in some cases different than what men bring to the table, is less than what men bring to the table, right? Like especially being a woman of color, I appreciate the differences, right? And I think that's where we as a society need to get to, where at one point it was like, oh no, everyone's the same, everyone's equal, let's not highlight differences. But I think we've all learned that that's probably not the best way to be, and that actually highlighting everyone's differences and promoting them so that we can all shine in our individuality, but also be seen as equal to the human standing next to us is really everyone's goal. I don't know anyone who would be like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Like, I don't think everyone should be equal. I don't think everyone should be treated fairly and be able to just, you know, literally live free. But I did look up the definition just so that we could have like an official definition. And I think this is the same thing. Beyonce had someone quote this in Lemonade, because it literally felt word for word. But the feminism defined is the belief in social, economic, and political equality of the sexes. So I'm like, okay, if this is the case, why is there even an argument in the first place? Like, why are we fighting over that?
Totally.
Who says no? So I was like, okay, what are the arguments out there? Like, what the people who are saying feminism is insert negative thing here, right? Like, what are their issues? And so I just want us to kind of quickly walk through these issues and like squash them, like once and for all. We're just going to squash them, okay? Before we get into that though, Annie, you made a great point about during this time, men being promoted over women or more than women. And some friends, some mom friends of mine, we were together talking about how this time really has potential to be the death of the working mom, right? Like the working mom has always been under a ton of stress and just daily obstacles that the working father does not have to deal with, you know, socially in our world. And with all of us being confined for the most part to our homes with working and still needing to take care of our children, you know, we're only one person. We can't be a million things at once. So you have to make decisions. And a lot of the times it falls on the mom to put work aside and take care of her children and take care of the house. And that is also, yeah, I'm nervous about what that's going to do to my working mom sisters, right? Like it's going to be a very difficult time to navigate for long term and to come back from. But that might be a whole nother topic. So anyway, let's get into these items and like, let's solve feminism. Let's just solve the issue of it for everybody.
Saturday's work.
Yeah, no big deal. Okay, so the first one I found was that one of the things that people are against feminism for is that they think that feminism is anti-men. So what would you guys say, Annie first and then Fallon, to someone who is like, you know, this is why I don't subscribe to feminism. It's an anti-men movement. What are your thoughts on that? And how would you debunk that?
Right. I think the people that say that aren't actually listening to the messages that these feminists are promoting. Rather, they're just seeing the extreme sides of what feminism can be. and thinking like it's women over anything and anyone, which is not the case. We're fighting for equality. We're fighting for equal opportunity and equal representation across the board, because we are as equally as intelligent and as equally as capable and qualified as the men that are in these boardrooms or workplaces. So I think it's just really important for people to actually sit back and listen to what we as feminists are fighting for. We're not asking for anything absurd or anything outlandish. We're truly asking just to be seen as equals, and I don't think that's too much to ask.
Totally agree. What would you say, Fallon?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the same thing. That's definitely, like, in my opinion, the biggest stereotype of feminism. And perhaps there are women out there that do hate men, but I think overarching, that's just like silly and probably derived from like some historical stigma when, you know, equality and women's rights movements were finally, you know, concepted and socially brought to the surface. So I just, yeah, that's silly. We are totally fighting for equality. I mean, the definition reads itself. So
Right.
need to batch that one right away. I'm glad that's the first one, because it's enough.
I love that you, yes, because it's a true fact. There are women who hate men. Like, let's put that out there. And, but that's not the feminist movement, right? Just like there's groups of all, there's segments of all groups that are extremists, right? And that's not, the extremists shouldn't be how people define the whole, right?
And I think it's interesting too that when you think about the way people perceive how women support each other and interact with each other, very often it has the stereotype that women are catty. Women are constantly trying to tear each other down to build themselves up as an individual. And so I think that stereotype is what has brought itself onto feminism, is that we can't all support each other to build each other up to be equals, rather one person has to be above another, or one gender has to be above the other, where that's just not the case, because women are fully capable of encouraging each other, of empowering each other, of helping each other to the top, because there's plenty of room at the top and there's plenty of room for equality.
Yeah, that actually is a great place for us to actually ask you about the whole pageant world, right? Because there's a lot of conversation, neutral, negative, positive, about the pageant world in general and how it either aids or hurts, you know, women's, just how we're viewed in the world, right? And doing my research, I watched some clips of you and like the process. And I know, you know, your personal thoughts on it somewhat from what interviews I've watched, but I want to give you the chance to tell the audience, you know, how you viewed the pageant world, what got you into it, and how you see it either aiding or it being a neutral thing, or, you know, how is it helping progress how women are seen?
Yeah, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and that was a perfect time to start talking about pageantry and how it helps the feminist movement and empower women. I'm a firm believer that pageants completely made me who I am today, and I've learned all of my skills, at least stemming from pageantry. I started competing when I was 13 years old, and I started competing mostly for the fact that I knew I wanted to go out of state for college. So I grew up in Wisconsin, and as you mentioned, I went to Georgia for school. But at an early age, I knew that I wanted to go and experience a different part of the country. And so early on, I started looking for scholarship opportunities. And so a pageant competition kind of fell into my lap. The opportunity was there, and I realized that it combined my love for academics. I was very academically oriented. I was a dancer, so it implemented my talent with that as well. And it had a huge element of community service. And that's always been something that was important to me. So competing in pageants was kind of the culmination of all of these different facets of my life that I really loved all into one little element. And so that's why I started competing. And when I started competing at 13, I was very insecure. I would never like raise my hand in class. I just didn't want to speak up in front of a crowd. That wasn't me. And truly, after the first time I competed, I was a completely different person. I found a true confidence in myself. I realized that I had a voice and that I could use it, and that I could use it for having a positive impact, which ultimately led me to create the #IGotThis program, where I teach self-confidence to America's youth. But as far as pageants related to feminism, there is the stigma that pageants are for bimbos and girls don't have any brains in that. And that's from way back in the day of whatever pageants were at the time and what they were designed to be beauty contests. And that's just not what they are anymore. We're, like I mentioned, we're very focused on academics. Pageantry is very focused on community service. We genuinely call it a year of service, is your year as a title holder. And so it's how you can give back to the community and what skills you can learn as a public speaker, as a communicator, as a businesswoman, because as my year as Miss Georgia, that was my full-time job for an entire year. And so I was the president and CEO of my own company being Miss Georgia. And so I learned a lot, but I think what it comes down to is that pageants really encourage any of the participants, whether or not you're a competitor or a title holder, to be future oriented, be goal oriented, think about the impact that you can use your passions and your talents to give back to the community that you live in. And that's what all pageantry is centered around. And I think that really comes back down to just not only being a feminist and encouraging equality for all women, but just being a good person and giving back to the place where you live and the people that you love. And that's why I love it so much. And I've since retired from pageantry, you could say, but I still do some interview coaching on the side, and I really enjoy that.
Well, that lines up really well with the skills needed to be a good publicist, right?
I was thinking that the entire time.
Yeah. You can say it, Fallon, and just like elaborate.
No, well, first thing, I'm so excited and happy to hear that perspective. I had no idea that you spent a year traveling around the state, creating like these amazing educational opportunities and taking risks and trying new things and learning new skill sets. I mean, that's fantastic. So to me, I just have a completely different perspective on pageantry. Pageantry, is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, that's super cool. It's almost like an incubator by the state for this amazing female who is like willing to develop and grow and influence. So super cool and special. All those characteristics also very aligned with being a publicist, right?
Yeah, totally. It just like makes it so that, okay, you're learning how to speak in front of crowds, you're learning how to synthesize a message and like deliver it in a really succinct and like powerful way when you're being interviewed. I was gonna make a joke here, but really it's probably a serious topic around, but what about the bathing suits, right? Like, do we need to have women walking around stage in bathing suits? And I'll just leave it there. Let me know your thoughts on that.
That's really interesting that you brought that up, because my year as Miss Georgia, so I was Miss Georgia within the Miss America organization, and there are multiple different pageant organizations out there, but mine was Miss America. And so when I competed and won at Miss Georgia, swimsuit was a portion of the competition. 3 months later, I competed at Miss America, but the national staff had removed the swimsuit competition from the format. And so it was only focused on your platform, which is whatever your social impact initiative you took out into your community. There was an interview, an onstage question. They still had the evening gown portion of competition, and then talent. And it's really truly a personal experience based on, or a personal opinion on whether or not you think swimsuit has merit. I think that the role of being a Miss America or Miss Georgia or a local title holder, the whole point is to be a strong, holistic woman in every sense of the way. And in order to do a good job as a title holder, you have to have the health behind you to be able to put up with a very rigorous schedule throughout the course of a year. And so the swimsuit competition for me was a way to show how I take care of myself and how health is a priority to me. And I by no means have like a model-esque body. I'm 5'4", like I'm very short. I'm very muscular from my years in gymnastics. So I didn't have the stereotypical pageant body, but I worked really hard for the body that I did have. And so when I got to walk on stage in my swimsuit, I felt so confident knowing that I had put in the effort and put in the work to feel good about my body and not starving myself by any means, but really fueling myself to feel my best so I could be able to do my best work. And then my other theory behind the swimsuit competition is that it's very uncomfortable. It's super weird to be on stage in heels in front of hundreds of people. And there will be moments, being Miss Georgia, being Miss America, being a title holder, that are going to be equally as uncomfortable. And so this is an opportunity for the judges or the audience to see how you handle yourself under moments of interesting stress or struggle or uncomfort.
Yeah. And here's my honest opinion about just the overall feminist movement, where obviously there are things that were created a very long time ago where it was not meant to do or accomplish the things that we are wanting them to do or accomplish today, right? And I think the more we are as women open-minded to all of these things and then taking the ownership of them back, or for the first time having it, right? Like the pageant world is one where, just like everything else, it was started and probably run by men. But if this is really the evolution of the pageant world that you're describing, and I'm sure there's way more room for evolution, then it should be orchestrated and run by women, right? Because it's women helping to affect change for other women that will affect change for the states or the cities or the local location where people are. So I think the more we kind of are able to come into power and really put a mark on things that are ours, that in the past might have been exploitive of us, that we can take the power and do exactly how you're describing. So it requires open-mindedness on all women, and us running things, right? So I think we're heading in the right direction. One of the other arguments that people like to make is that either all feminists are the same, or like too much, or we're not the same, like there's too much division. And I think the biggest part in that division that I hear people talking about and that I've read articles on is everything kind of boils down to race these days. But within the feminist movement, right, there's the majority of women in America are either going to be of Caucasian descent or Black or African American descent. So in the process of this feminist movement, there have been times in our history, and probably not so distant history, where Black women or women of color have wanted to insert women of color issues into the feminist movement. And there's been pushback, more so I would say in the 60s than today. But it's one of those things that anti-feminists like to use against us, the collective, as we're trying to convert more people over to the feminist movement, right? So this is less of a question and just more of an open-ended, let's just have a conversation about this. We can start with Fallon, give Annie a chance to catch her breath. But what are the conversations, I guess, that we're having amongst our friend groups, our female friend groups around this? And just what are some ideas, right, that we have that could help bring all women closer together so that we can address all the issues that we all face, right? Some are collective to women, but as we start to diversify and understand the subgroups, issues become very different, right? So what are some suggestions we have where we can kind of bridge that gap?
Yeah.
Fallon?
No, that's a great topic. And I think at like a very high level, maybe just remembering the manifesto that feminism, like, yeah, and we just touched on it, does not mean, unequal rights of females versus males. In fact, it means like equal rights for everyone, right? Regardless of gender. We talked about this on our diversity episode 2, and Farissa, you touched on this at the beginning of the episode, but it's like celebrating your differences, whether that's male, female, Black or white, sex, age, shape, gender, celebrating that difference and just asking for equal rights regardless of what that difference is. I think that's like the manifesto here. That is where all these different arguments stem from, is that's all we're asking for. So I think to constantly be reminded of that manifesto, just that all people, regardless of what that difference looks like, deserve equal rights.
And I would add, because I love that, and I would add that we can tackle more than one issue at a time, right? Like, that is, not that men can't do that, but that's one of our superpowers. Like, as women, we can handle more than one thing at a time. And I think it's time that we show the world that we can do that, right? We can tackle equal pay for women while also tackling the fact that white women and women of color don't even make the same amount of money, right? Like we can attack both of those things at the same time and bring them to the table. And if the lawmakers and the men can't handle the diversity within that conversation, then that's on them. But we can totally do that, right? Annie, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. The way I think about it is that we as women, we're all marginalized in some kind of way, and we're fighting for equality. So let's say men are on this tier, and as women, we're here. And then if you're Black or a Latina woman, then you're marginalized even more. And I think the tides all rise together. And so if we as women are seeking equality, we can't do that without lifting up the other marginalized communities that are even more marginalized than I might be as a Caucasian woman. So I must support those movements in order for women to be equal first, to then become equal with men. And so it is the same issue that we're tackling, but it's so nuanced that these conversations that we're having now are so important to just to have people open their minds and saying, sure, I have these issues, but someone else might have further issues, or someone else can support me in what I'm experiencing. I just need to educate them on what I am going through. And that's so important as a community of women where we can build each other up and we have the potential to, like I said, rise those tides all together to then reach equality and cross the finish line. You could say all is one rather than one marginalized group at a time.
Yeah, I mean, if the three of us were president, we could do all that, right? I'm sitting here listening to your answer, honestly thinking about how deep the divide goes just amongst women in general. And from the mom perspective right now, I didn't know about this until I became a mom, but even in, so there's women and then there's moms and not moms, and then there's young and old and white and Black, and like there's so many opportunities to be like, I'm in this group, you're in that group. And I think we have to break those barriers down, and we have to be able to say, okay, like, working, non-working, or work from home or work at home, raising your children, running your household versus choosing to work outside of your house. Like that was my first real feeling, and this is going to be like my next question for you guys, but the first time I really started to feel a divide between my, sisterhood as women in this country, beyond, being a woman of color, but really like when I look at women, it was that working mom thing versus stay-at-home mom thing, and the amount of judgment and pressure and conversation and not minding your business, and like just a lot that goes into what is better, what's right, what's this, what's that. I really cannot hammer home enough for everyone watching the idea of just realizing there is no right way, there is no wrong way to be a woman, to be a mother, to be a wife, to be, anything. It's a personal choice that, again, if we're all saying we're all equal and need to be treated that way, that we should all be able to make, right? There should be no judgment from me as a CEO, 2 companies, 2 kids, wife. There should be no judgment towards me from a mom who chooses to work at home and take care of their kids and their house, and I leave my house every day to do this and then go home in the evenings to take care of my kids, right? It's a choice. That's what we're fighting for. The choice to be able to do whatever we want to do. So this leads right into one of the next big, sticky conversation points around this topic, which is, everything's fine. Women are equal. Like sexism is dead. Why do we need the feminist movement? And we all know the answer to that question, so I'm not even going to ask you guys to answer that. What I will ask you to do is maybe share, like I just shared, working moms versus stay-at-home moms. That is something that I have to battle with in my life, right? What's an example from both of you that is like something that you have to deal with in your life as a woman that you're kind of like, I'm in this club and there's a group of women over here who are like, well, I don't like that. You should be doing it like this. What is an example of that? And then give me an example of the sexist movement is sexism is still alive, right? So if there's things that are happened or have happened in your life, what are some of those things?
Yeah, I can jump in, Fallon, if
Yeah,
you are good with that. Okay, so I have an example of this from one of my internships that I had in college, actually. So I was interning at a national news network in their local news division. And it was one of my first days, and I had just come off of competing for Miss Georgia, which the company knew about because I had to take a few days off. But I come back and I'm shadowing one of the women on my team and learning about her position and working alongside of her. And so the whole day we worked together, and I'm doing what she is telling me to do and writing scripts for what I need to and trying to take initiative as an intern does. And so at the end of the day, I was packing up my things to then go home. And she pulled me aside and she was like, Annie, I need to apologize. And I was kind of taken aback by that. I was like, what? Apologize for what? We had a great day. Like, I thought it was a great day. And she was like, well, you sat down and I had a certain perspective of what I thought you were going to be like. Honestly, I thought your dad had gotten you this job. I didn't think you were going to be a hard worker, and you proved me wrong. So I wanted to apologize that I had that preconceived notion about you without ever meeting you. And so that's kind of a negative and a positive story all wrapped into one. The negative is that women, I think because we are so intuitive, we often make quick judgments, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a negative way. And so she quickly judged my work ethic, my character, who I was as a person, just by hearing something about me or seeing me for the first time. But then by the end of the day, through my work and through the effort that I put into what we were doing together, I was able to prove her wrong and show her who I truly was. And then for her to tell me that she had that preconceived notion and apologize without me ever realizing that that was an issue to begin with, I was very encouraged by that. And the fact that that happened within an 8-hour time span. And so it just goes to show that as women, yes, we might have instinct gut reactions towards something in a negative way, but if we come at it with an open mind and are willing to learn and are willing to listen or just willing to look, that we can learn a lot about each other and, again, encourage each other and build each other up to reach equality altogether.
Totally. That's a great story. So what did you say back to her when she apologized and made you aware of that?
I pretty much said what I just said. I was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Well, thank you for the compliment. And I'm glad I could have changed your mind about me.
Awesome. Are you guys still connected today?
Oh yeah, we're LinkedIn connected.
Good. Fallon, what about you?
Yeah, well, I find, Annie, thanks for sharing that. I find like that accountability to be really respectful and impressive, you know, and I think that that's something we don't come across enough. I especially in like the female workspace, I think back to your point originally of this like stereotype of like cattiness and everyone trying to fight their way to the top. Like, I think it does still exist. And I've been in a lot of like female-based work environments where there were no men at all. And recently, like building my business over the course of the last 1.5 years, I've started to work with a variety of clients, and for the first time, a lot of male CEOs. And there's a distinction, and some have just been fantastic and are supportive and are pioneers in the space of supporting women. And there's others where I've experienced like having my first pass for the first time, and I'm like, that didn't just come out of your mouth. There's like no way that you just insinuated you and I together privately in a closed door. Like, what just happened? And you're taken back and it's blown over in the conversation and you kind of just start to question. And I'm like, this is like ridiculous. Like, I can't believe this is 2020 and I'm still experiencing this. So I think in terms of feeling like in comparison to other women, I don't know, there's many examples, but I think one is being like a female business owner. We can probably like all attest to this, and you're just not always taken quite, you know, as seriously, or you feel like you have to prove yourself, and maybe that doesn't even exist. I think I'm constantly fighting that battle, but it's been really interesting for me where there's a lot of women who are working for men over the past decade. I've been working with women and just like have experienced that sort of friction has been really upsetting and eye-opening, and also given me a really great perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, no, the business ownership piece is huge because, you know, traditionally every title has a you know, a look to it, right? That we're all used to seeing. So like the CEO, if you close your eyes and envision one, um, doesn't necessarily look like me, right? That's not what most little kids, when you go, who's the boss? Like, you know, they're gonna pick probably some like tall, uh, you know, well shaped faced white guy with like slick back hair because that's the image that has been put in front of us, right? They're not going to put a woman who's 7 months pregnant in a wrap dress in flats as the vision, as the image. Um, I will say this though, being a business owner myself for the past almost 12 years now, being 39 years old, starting in my 20s, really young in this game that was built for rich, straight white men. If Alex were here, she would be like, straight. Um, I I came into the game with my own preconceived notions about some of the obstacles that I would have to face before I even faced them, just knowing what it was like being a woman of color living in this world, right? So I kind of armored up for things that might not have happened yet, right? And I think that my biggest piece of advice to young women right now, no matter who you are, is to kind of take the opposite approach there and just walk in with confidence. Whether you believe that you're going to get hit with some kind of insult or, you know, sexual attention that you don't want, or all the things that we know come with being a woman sometimes, or you know, feeling a sense of competition from another woman, right? If you enter a situation anticipating that you do show up differently in the world versus if you enter a situation giving that person, whether it's a man or another woman, the opportunity to show you who they are, right? To Annie's story, if that other woman would have approached her day with the mindset of, oh, we have someone new starting here. Her name is Annie. I am looking forward to getting to know her, who she is, right, as a person. Then they, you know, Annie probably would have had the same day, or maybe it would have been different, right? Because the fact that she was peeling back preconceived notions about you throughout the day instead of enjoying learning about you, that would have been maybe a different experience for you, right? So if I didn't spend a lot of my time socially in my mid-20s saying I'm almost 30 in meetings, maybe I would have had more time to do other things, right? Because I was so self-conscious about the fact that I was so young in rooms with people who were so much older than me, had more experience than me, etc. So I think that's if there's like a piece of a call to action, right, for us, our audience, is step one is just enter into new situations and relationships with a completely open mind, no matter who they are, giving people the opportunity to show you who they are instead of acting on all these preconceived notions that we've been taught to have, whether it's from the media or our family or, you know, even experiences with other people, because not all women are created equal, not all men are created equal, not all people of color, black, whatever. It's like we're all human beings and we're not our collective. So that's where I would go with that. And I think that's what I'm personally doing in my life to aid these battles that I personally am in, right? The battle for Black people to be seen as equal human beings, the battle for women to be seen as equal human beings. I'm doing it by showing up myself without any preconceived notions of what other people might or might not be. Are there any examples for you guys as to what you're doing in your personal or professional lives to just aid this movement, right? Like, what are the things, small, medium, big, doesn't even matter, but what are you guys doing in your personal and professional lives to help this progress? We'll start with Annie.
Yeah, sure. I'll talk first about my role at Small Girls. So I'm on the influencer marketing team, our digital team at Small Girls, and so we develop social media campaigns for brands that come to us. And something that has really come to light, let me actually start by saying that Small Girls as a whole has always done a really good job of tapping into diversity and making sure that different people of different backgrounds have always had a place, especially within our influencer campaigns. But within the Black Lives Matter movement that really came to light in June, we took a step back and said we're working on it, but we're not doing enough. And so we've made an internal commitment, you could call it an internal commitment, to make sure that on every single one of our list builds, we have at least 50% content creators on there that are BIPOC. And so that's something that we're doing very actively, and encouraging diversity, and not just Black and white, but also making sure we have people of the LGBTQ community on there, making sure we have people of Asian descent and Latino descent, making sure that that diversity is there, because especially within the influencer space, there are a lot of white blonde girls that are influencers, which are great. You know, I'm sure they're all really great content creators, but there are so many different people that have different perspectives in different audiences. And our mission is to make sure that as many people as possible can know about this new product or about this new brand. And so by contracting different content creators that have different backgrounds, different audiences, different interests, is effective not only for us as a company to make sure that we're expanding our own network, but succeeding for our client as well. And so the fact that we've made a commitment of saying that 50% of our list builds that we deliver to clients will be BIPOC content creators is a step in the right direction. It's still probably not enough, but I think we're on the right track of making sure that we are open-minded when it comes to developing these lists and finding our creators that we work with.
Yeah, I mean, as professional communicators, specifically in the PR space, if we think about it, to your point, Annie, it makes our quality of work better the more diverse we are purposeful in being, right? Where if a brand is a shoe line and they want to sell shoes to women who love shoes within the $25 to $75 price range, that includes a lot of women, right? And that look the full spectrum of a rainbow, from color, size, sexual orientation, all of it. So it would just make sense, even if we're just talking about marketing and communications, to be as diverse as possible because it delivers the best product for our clients. And then it also aids us in the social movements that we're talking about, right? So it's like, I feel like it's a no-brainer, and it's the same thing in the advertising world for me on, you know, the other side of what I do for a living. It's like we want to advertise to the most diverse audience so that we can be the most effective and efficient, but we also want to make sure that we're not alienating any other group as well, right? Where we're doing it in a smart and strategic way. So that's good, and I hope other agencies follow suit to what you guys are doing, because I can attest, I've worked with, you know, PR firms in the past for some of my brand stuff, and I would get a list, like specifically for my book, and not my current publicist, because she's awesome, shouts out to Takia, but other people I've worked with will send me a list of influencers. Now, I'm a Black woman who wrote a book, and you want to send my book to 100%, you know, white women across the country. I mean, I'll take them for sure, because I love all women. But did the thought dawn on you to try and reach out to some Black influencers? You think that they might associate and engage with my story a little bit differently and see other parts of it that maybe another woman wouldn't? And I had to tell them, add some people to this list, please, right? So I'm really happy to hear that you guys are doing that. Fallon, what are you doing in your personal life or professional life to help move us, you know, closer to the whatever our end goal is, equality?
I have like so much relatability to both of the examples that you gave, Annie and Farissa, because it's like a very sad and scary truth, but probably about a year ago, because I also do quite a bit of influencer marketing, it felt like those 100% or at least like very hefty all white influencer list was like totally normal to deliver to a, like you would even think about it. And then someone actually, I posed a question, I remember, specifically for a client event last year, and they're like, okay, sure, yeah, mix in some diversity. And that was the idea, was like, just sprinkle it in, mix in a little diversity. And to actually be having this conversation comfortably now and talking about it to the point where, yes, we probably do have to make a point to say, hey, let's draw a line, and let's hold ourselves to the standard of 50-50. But I do actually feel like there's a shift and becoming just more comfortable and like second nature to just originate these lists in a very diverse setting. Actually, I challenge myself to do it backwards to front. So I'll actually start by building with diversity from an ability standpoint, not just a gender or race standpoint, sexual orientation, and try to really challenge myself to find like the most diverse crowd, and then sort of fill in the blanks with the more obvious, even like content creators. Because what I think is so interesting, even beyond race and the obvious diversity, is like the diversity in content creators too. We're always looking to the influencers to influence, the fashion influencers, the lifestyle influencers. What about the experts? What about the credible recommenders? What about the real people who actually have a say in the community? So I think that, to Annie's point, I've been through very similar exercises in really trying to diversify that list in so many ways beyond race and gender, which has been really fun and exciting. I love it. And then from a personal standpoint, I think something that probably my mom instilled in me very young, because I come from like a household of women, and I have learned over the years, realized over the years that I have like one of the strongest girl groups and friend groups that I've experienced in my life, which I feel very fortunate for, and we've talked a lot about on the show, is to just surround yourself with good people who, golden rule is like, just treat others how you want to be treated. And when you surround yourself with really strong women who are confident and empowered and supportive, I think that's the key. Like, never questioning that your friend can support you, be your biggest cheerleader, but also tell you when there's something wrong in the picture. That those are the people that you want in your circle. So I think I've created naturally the circle of really strong, amazing women. And I'm kind of like a no bullshit. It's really easy for me to cut ties with girls who aren't exuding those qualities. And by building that stronger inner circle and lifting each other up, and I look around at my friends and celebrate their successes, I think we're all hopefully making the world a better place, inspiring women from the DMs we get to continue those actions to build that community up. Send that energy out to the world, hopefully inspire some girls who can then send that energy to the next generation and continue to build. But I think it really starts so personally at the core of who you are surrounding yourself with and who you call your teammates, your rosters in your personal life, that's going to reflect who you are as a person and what you do professionally.
You always bring it home so well, Fallon. Oh my God. It's so true though. And to the point about your friend group, I mean, I know I say this a lot, but for real, like Fallon's little girl group, grown women group actually is what I should call you guys. You guys are so, I've never been around real life women that are actually as supportive, truly supportive, the way that you guys are of each other, both personally and professionally. You know, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that your girls will show up for you to an event. If a client needs some more bodies in a room to help you, just to say congratulations, Fallon, and everything in between. Or when you're, you know, having like your worst day, to be like, you got this, girl, you know, here's a hug, or, you know, a glass of wine, or whatever it needs to happen. So yeah, I love that. And I think, you know, as someone who I don't have, like, I have really great friends, but this like girl group thing that you have going on, I never had that at this age. But what I have found to do is find that in here,
Farissa.
which has been a fantastic journey. And I'm not complete yet, right? I haven't completed the journey. But I'm saying this for all the girls out there who are like, well, I don't have like 5 best friends who, some of them are my sisters and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, again, everyone's not going to have the same thing, but that feeling that you get from being surrounded by those like-minded folks who are supporting each other, you can get in many different ways. And I think it starts with on the inside, because if Fallon didn't feel that way about herself, she wouldn't be able to show up for the other women in her life. So
yeah, and I mean, I agree with that to an extent, because I'll tell you, I'm still kind of trying to work on that I haven't been forced into the situation where I need to be my own best friend. I've had 2 built-in BFFs with my sisters throughout my life, and I think sometimes almost to a flaw I bridge on my girlfriends, because thankfully I know that I can like text them with something I want to celebrate, and they're gonna like lift me up 20 times as much, as opposed to I've had experiences with girls who have done the opposite. I've been scared to share, you know, my wins or go to them with an issue or a challenge. But I think to your point, like it is so important. And I'm still, you know, trying to learn that self-confidence to the point where sometimes I almost feel like I lean on them as a crutch, right? Like in those weak moments. So they're equally as important. And there's an argument for, not an argument for both, there's a benefit to both, and also working simultaneously together. So I think at the very core, goes back to the inception of this conversation, is just like having the confidence in making your choices as a woman and being so proud of who you are and what you stand for.
Yep. And not like, you know, not feeling the need to be in competition with anyone else, man or woman, especially us as women. And I'll give a quote that I came up with a couple years ago, and I still believe it to be true today. There's plenty of success, dick, and money to go around. There's no need for us to be arguing over those things, ladies. We all know we could get as much of the 3 of those things as we want in life because we're women and we can make it happen. So let's support each other and, you know, get this thing completed once and for all, hopefully in our children's lifetime. Okay, so we'll wrap it up with, like we always do, just like share some news, right? So what is going on professionally that you're super excited about, right? To Fallon's point, this is a place where we are excited for each other and happy, so sharing is good. What are you excited about? What do you have coming up? What client work are you excited to share? You know, personal stuff. We'll start with Annie, and then Fallon, and then I'll share.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, I feel really, really fortunate during quarantine that we have been so busy as a team that we have been. And it's mostly because social use has been so high. And so a lot of brands want to get everything on social media. So we have been really busy, which has been kind of crazy, but very grateful to be as busy as I have been. We do have a lot of really exciting campaigns coming up, and some brands I can mention and some I can't. But we have a TikTok campaign coming out with one of our brands, and I am so excited to see this come into fruition. I've kind of been our point TikTok gal on our team, that every time I see a trend, I bring it back to the team and say, oh, we could tweak it this way for this client, or we could implement this trend or this audio for this client. And so I'm really excited to see us tap more and more into TikTok, whether or not TikTok is still here in a few months.
Yeah.
If not, we'll just bring it to Instagram Reels and they'll be fine. But I'm really excited to see us as a company expanding outside of just Instagram and really taking advantage of all of the social space that we have to offer and how different platforms can promote brands in a very different way. And so I've been very excited about this campaign coming up.
Awesome. What about you, Fallon? What are you excited about right now?
Okay, well, I haven't dove into the TikTok trend personally myself, but some of my clients have, and I love it from a content creation standpoint. It's so much fun. I'll have to introduce you, Annie, to one of my girlfriends, Kelsey, who heads up beauty and fashion partnerships at TikTok. But she sends through a trend report every week, and I'm reading. I'm like, which week am I going to be like so inspired that I just hop on? Because the trends are like so fun and random, and you're like, how is this making headlines? But this is so cool and just so, I think, cutting edge for our industry. That's been super fun. From a client standpoint, I just launched a really exciting campaign with a medical aesthetic studio brand called Of Me. They're actually originated in Georgia. I don't know if that name sounds familiar. They're about 3 years old. But they just launched their 6th location in Chicago. When you think medical aesthetic studio, you think Botox and filler and all these really like superficial and kind of like recently discussed and kind of untouched and stigmatized topics. And what they're doing is they want to like remove the whole stigma and say, hey, why are women getting this? Well, they want to feel their best, right? And when you feel your best, you're your best version of yourself, you show up that way for everyone around you. Again, the kinetic energy that you give off is just making the world a better place. So we're really peeling back like the layers of what all this means and focusing on the core of why women care so much about how they look, but how does that make the world a better place? So we tapped into Find Your Glow, which is their tagline, and created this entire campaign around how women find their glow. Not physically, internally, what makes you glow, what makes you tick, when are you your happiest self, and telling that story. And the responses that we've gotten from these macro influencers have been so cool. And I think they're most excited to be like, wait a second, every partnership I do, I have to talk about the brand, I have to talk about the product, I have to hold up the little canister and talk about the benefits. And we're like, wait a second, we're not trying to sell you on the product, we want to sell you on this feeling and the manifesto, and that you should show up being the best version of yourself. So here I'm sitting here repping a Botox client, which I never thought I would say. And the messaging is so aligned with my personal values. So I think it's really cool to see something unexpected come together. So it's @OfMeOfficial on Instagram. So follow along. Lots of exciting things to come with the Find Your Glow project.
For me, I'm excited because I am taking all of next week off. Like,
yay!
I'm not doing anything.
A Hawaii trip or?
No, it's a mental staycation. I'm not going anywhere. I'll be lounging in my backyard. Maybe I'll start writing another book. I'll be at Soho House. I'll get a massage. Like, I'm just doing a week of mental and emotional and physical wellness for myself.
That's incredible. You deserve that.
Thank you.
This makes me so happy. Like, I'm gonna feel relaxed next week just knowing that you're relaxing.
Well, good. It's so funny because, like, you know, I'm sure everyone can relate to this. We all work so hard. We talk about it all the time. We talk about how important it is to take care of ourselves, and then it's like it's a hard action item to take, right? You have to plan accordingly, especially when you're the boss, to just check out, so that your team has what they need to get it done. But I'm the queen of delegation, so I'm happy to delegate to people. It's just I need to like keep my outlook like literally closed, because if I'm already thinking, okay, if I'm like typing because I'm writing, what if like an email pops up? How do I ignore that little box in the corner, right? Oh, easy, Farissa.
Setting notifications.
Yeah, like don't have it open, you know? So it's those small things that I'm like literally making sure are real. And as we're done filming this, I will be done working until next Tuesday. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, so anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I think, and I hope this conversation was good for people, just to understand when we're talking about what the feminist movement is, how we can all be a part of it. And really all it requires is that we all have an open mind as it pertains to our sisters on all sides of how we do things, when we do things, what we do, that we just want to be seen as equal human beings by ourselves and by our brothers, right? So yeah, Annie, it was such a pleasure meeting you. And
nice to meet you.
So great meeting you both. Thank you so much for having me. I feel so motivated and encouraged. I'm like gonna take on my Saturday and do as many things as I can now.
Good. I love it. So now you're part of the PR Girl fam, and we'll be in touch really soon, okay?
And you're taking over the feed soon, right?
Yes, I haven't gotten my date yet, but I know that it's happening.
Yeah, you'll get an email.
Perfect.
It'll be soon.
Awesome.
All right.
Can't wait to keep up.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Look, Fallon's getting her hair together.
Wait, let me get the. Beautiful. Thank you so much. This is great.
Yes.